today on Horror Deadbeats, we are very, very fortunate to have Miss Lynn Lowry. She has been in such iconic films as George Romero's The Crazies, David Cronenberg's Shivers, and the Paul Schrader 1982 remake of Cat People. Amidst all of her other things that she's involved in and all her other many talents, it's a pleasure to have you, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very, very happy to be here.
Lynn, I guess this is the pretty standard question, but you were, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you were born in Illinois, but you were raised in Atlanta.
I was born in East St. Louis, Illinois, which my mom tells me I shouldn't tell anyone. I should tell them I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, because East St. Louis is gotten to be not a very great place. They say if you get lost in East St. Louis, don't stop at the traffic lights. So, but I sort of find it interesting to have been born there. And when I was born there and lived there for the first 10, 11, 12 years, I think it was pretty nice. So, and then I moved to Burbank, California before I moved to Atlanta. So I was out in Burbank for about 6 months, and then we moved to Atlanta. So that was an incredible shock to go from East St. Louis to Burbank, California, and then finally to Atlanta. Sure, very different.
Yeah.
I've done some creepy stuff in movies too. So.
Oh yeah, Shivers is one of them. Oof.
Yeah, I am pretty creepy in that in the end part.
You know what made it so creepy though is you were almost so angelic. You were and are a very beautiful lady, but you seem so innocent and angelic, but it was all this horrific stuff happening around you in Shivers, and that made an impact on me. I will never forget that. And in the Crazies too, you're always this little beautiful ray of sunshine with and everything around you looks like hell with a hole knocked in it.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's I think that that's one of the things that sort of makes my film performances so memorable. I mean, that scene in Shivers where I come up out of the swimming pool is one of my favorite things of me on film, because it's such a combination of sort of innocence and sensuality and yet evil. And I just love that moment, and the slow motion and the hand coming out, towards Paul Hampton, who I really wanted to give the parasite to. So, it was really cool to do that. I love that.
Yeah, actually, I just watched that last week, so it's pretty fresh in my head. Shivers.
Yeah, it still stands up today, and they're doing a remake of it. I don't know if you.
That's what I heard. Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, I was talking to Andre Link, who was the producer along with Charles Dunning. I told him that I really wanted to be in it if possible.
Oh, cool.
And so, he said he would let me know when the time was right. And so we'll see. Maybe a good cameo or something.
Yeah.
They don't usually like to use the original people in the remakes because they don't want the audience to be thinking about the original. They want them to think, about, a fresh approach to the remake.
Right.
So they seldomly ever give any of the original people big parts in the remakes.
Right.
So, if I could get a cameo, that would be great. So I'm working on it.
Well, I don't want to jump out of place, but that's like the story you're telling me about the Crazies, the remake. I mean, they surprised you by riding the bicycle?
Oh, yeah. No, they surprised me with singing the song.
Yeah.
With the bicycle. It was definitely, I was not prepared. I always like to be really prepared as an actor, but in that particular situation, they had told my manager that I had nothing to learn, just come. And so, I got there, and the assistant director called me that night at 9. My call time was 5 a.m., and this is in Iowa. And he said, are you all ready with the song? And I was like, what? And he said, the hymn that you were singing, and I said, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh.
And so then they had to get the song over to me, and then they sent over a CD, and they don't have CD players, when motels in Iowa. And so they finally found somebody who had a recorder, and then I had to learn this song that night, and it was just funny to me that, on a $21 million movie that no one told me that I had to learn a hymn and ride a bike.
Oh, I love that story still.
But I'm just happy for the guy that still had the compact disc player that could help you out with learning the hymn for the Crazies remake.
Yeah. The difference between, though, it's funny that you say that, because the difference between the movies that we do today and the ones I did back in the 70s are that when we did it in the 70s, it was for the art of doing it. I mean, everyone was there like a family to make something that was magical and special and that would last forever. And now it's a job. I'm not saying that they're not creative and that they're
right.
and that they don't do a good job, but basically that's what it is. So that's the different thought process.
You kind of came into your own during the 70s, and guys, I don't want to hog it all, but the Cronenberg film, especially Cronenberg, came about right at the time that porn chic was in, and do you think that Shivers would have even gotten made if the timing hadn't been right? It's not a porno film, but it's very erotic. Do you think that the timing had to be in place for that movie to get made?
Well, I mean, I think that it was really lucky that it got made, and that they were very fortunate to get the funding that they got. And of course, all those people were really upset about supporting the film with that funding when they saw it. They were pretty shocked, at it at the time. And there was pretty big controversy, about the making of it and getting the money for it and all that. But, the film is the first movie ever to show body horror. I don't think there was a movie before that film where something comes out of the body that way.
Right.
And so I think that's why, one of the reasons why it's such a classic is that, the films after that, like Alien and all of those films, I think they got that idea from Shivers. So, I think it was very, very lucky that it happened at that particular time, and it was Cronenberg's first film, and, Ivan Reitman was involved, but, they were nobody, at that point.
Right.
So for them to get it all together the way they did and make it happen was pretty phenomenal.
And I had no idea that Ivan Reitman was so much involved in Canadian cinema right about that time, but he was behind a lot of things like that, and David Cronenberg's next film, Rabid, they capitalized on the lovely girl and the body horror again with Marilyn Chambers, and they originally wanted to get Sissy Spacek, but Ivan Reitman suggested Marilyn Chambers to keep it sexy to go along with all the body horror images. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, Ivan and I didn't get along real well, so that was unfortunate, If I'd known what he was going to turn out to be, I would have maybe been nicer to him, but he wasn't very nice when I worked with him, and we just didn't hit it off. And, if they were looking for a Sissy Spacek, I would have been perfect for Rabid, because I looked so much like Sissy Spacek when I was, younger, and still actually look like her.
Yeah, it could have been your legacy from Shivers, that subliminally that he knew that what he had in you the first time.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah. Well, I should have gone to that party in his room when he asked me.
That's funny.
How did you get into acting?
Well, when I was a child, I was very shy. And I, had trouble talking to people and, stuff like that. And so when I got up in front of people, like I got up when I was like 7, and I did a report on the spider, and everybody wanted me to read their report after that. And I thought, there might be something to this. And so I went on from there, and I, did grade school plays, and I created my own skits, and I did crazy things in front of the high school, funny stuff, and created a drama club in high school and got to be the president of it, and won a scholarship in speech and drama to go to the University of Georgia. And so ever since I was a very young age, I found that being up in front of people, I got to use someone else's words and be a different character, and I was able to shine through that and, find my way, and got to be popular that way and got attention that way. And so that's why I became an actor.
And before we get on to the Crazies, you worked with Lloyd Kaufman?
Yes.
Battle of Love's Return. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I was at an audition for Canon Joe that John Avildsen, I think, was directing. And Lloyd was his assistant or production manager or something. And so I went for the audition, and I was sitting out in the waiting room, and Lloyd walked in and he saw me, and he came right over to me and he said, "Oh my God, I just lost the lead girl in the movie that I'm shooting, and you would be perfect for it. Of course, we're not paying anything, but we'd love to have you. Would you be interested?" And I hadn't done anything, and so it sounded like it would be fun. So that's how I got involved with Lloyd. And it actually started out to be a short. And a lot of people, asked me what my first film was. But my first feature film was I Drink Your Blood. But the first short that I did was The Battle of Love's Return. And then after I Drink Your Blood, Lloyd turned that into a feature film. Unfortunately. But Lloyd was great, and we're still very good friends, and I also did sugar cookies for Troma, with Lloyd. So we have a bit of a history together.
If we go on to the Crazies, what are your memories of that, working with Romero?
Well, George was wonderful. He is truly a gentleman. He is a big man, and just so warm. He's just like a big, cuddly teddy bear. And he was very patient and, curious about ideas that we would have, that we would want to try. Very open, to, anything, really. And if he had an idea that was better, or I had an idea that was better, he definitely would let me do, what I wanted to do. He didn't seem to have any ego. He just wanted the movie to be the best that it could be. And so he was just a wonderful, person to work with. And even though Evanstown, I can't remember the name of the town we were in, but it was pretty gloomy. Pittsburgh, it's pretty dreary and gloomy. But he was delightful, and I would work with him, as my friend Richard Griffin would say, what does he say? Oh, in a cocaine heartbeat. That's what Richard said.
Sounds like Richard.
George again. Yeah. So he was great. The only time, and I've told the story so many times, but the only time that I ever disagreed with George was when I get killed. And that was just because I wanted to have the big death scene, and thought that I was going to get to do that, scream and writhe and crawl on the ground and grab the soldier's leg and be dragged across the field, make it last a long time, get a lot of camera time and stuff. And he just wanted me to say, oh. And I just thought, oh my God, that's so lame, that's never going to work. But, he insisted, and so, of course I did, and it turned out to be one of the most memorable moments in the film, because you can't do what I wanted to do after a rape scene with your father, like the one that we did. You just can't top that with more violence, screaming, or whatever. And so that moment that's so innocent and pure and almost curious is a very powerful moment. So he was definitely right on with that.
You just described the scene I was going to ask you about. It's I'll never forget that scene. And the Crazies was one that I thought the remake was very well done. Probably the best Romero remake that has come about, including Dawn of the Dead. But that scene with you and your father, like I said, I will never forget that ever, because it was very powerful. And you have the subject matter of your films. It was just so out there. I was excited to talk to you today because of like all this beautiful woman in all these horrible situations. It seems like you always found yourself in something like that.
Yeah, I don't know why that was. But, somehow or another, I always got cast as these sort of crazy people, that were pretty and looked kind of angelic and elf-like, and then goes crazy. So, but yeah, that scene that was a very difficult scene to do for me and for Richard, because we had grown very close through the whole shoot, and it really was almost like being raped, by your father in a way. But we just became the characters and did what we had to do. And I think the scene is, really creepy, and they wouldn't even touch that scene in the remake. I mean, I asked Breck Eisner about that, and he told me that when he first took on the project, that they asked him if he was going to do the Lynn Lowry rape scene, and he said, "Oh no, we can't have that kind of thing in the film." So they didn't even have my father and me characters in the remake.
Yeah.
Because I just think that I think we're so memorable in the movie that people would just constantly be thinking about the original.
Right.
So they have to be careful, of that. So we were eliminated.
Well,
which in a way was unfortunate, but I don't know if that could have been recreated the way it was, because
no, it couldn't have been. The original is very disturbing, very memorable. The remake is entertaining and fun, but I don't think in 40 years people are going to remember the remake. But I do think in 40 years they're going to remember Romero's film.
But that was definitely the most memorable part of it. And you're right, it kind of became the dynamic for the remake was the husband and wife thing.
Right.
It was definitely did not have the feel of the original. How did you pick your roles? Because they have been so unique. Was it more serendipity, or was it something about it that attracted you to it?
The original role of the Crazies?
Yeah, anything you have done.
Well, I was just desperate to work, and and frankly, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, because I'm gonna explain it in a second, but frankly, I never thought anyone would ever see those movies. I Drink Your Blood. I never thought anyone would see it. It was like, and Shivers and the Crazies. It was like, I did those films just to sort of get experience in hopes that somebody might see me and I might go on to get to do, more expensive, bigger budgets, and win an Academy Award, that kind of dream, So, but I have to say, in all honesty, that those films, of course, have lasted, and I do see now that they are extremely good, and the quality and the cinematography and the acting and, everything about them is just stellar. So, I mean, I'm extraordinarily proud to be in those movies, and if it hadn't been for those movies, I would not be working now.
It was a good time for cinema, yeah, because, like, it was meager budgets, but it was people with a lot of talent. That's pretty much what it boiled down to.
Yeah, yeah. And, of course, you know, Joe Mangine was actually the cinematographer on it, but he doesn't get credit for it because he had to leave 2 weeks before they wrapped because he had a contract to go to France, and they were all so angry with him that they did not give him credit. And he, of course, he did Alligator and The Sword and the Sorcerer, and
right.
And I mean, he is the reason that I Drink Your Blood is memorable today. I mean, the way that he did the lighting and the way that he shot, like the scene where I cut the lady's hand off. I mean, you know, we shot that scene for like 2 days. I mean, he wanted it to be perfect. And so, you know, that is the reason. And of course, the way that David cast, you know, was also, you know, part of the reason the movie is remembered today. But I always try to tell everyone, Joe is no longer with us, but he was just, you know, essential to that project.
What it was like working with David Cronenberg, because he's a very individualistic person, if that's the right word. So how did you find working with him?
Well, you know, when I worked with David, he was just a normal guy. You know, I don't know what he's like now, but when I worked with him, he was just, you know, like the guy next door. He was just friendly and charming and wonderful, and you know, he pretty much left me alone. You know, he just let me do my own thing. I think I was cast, you know, pretty right for the film, and you know, I worked with Paul Hampton on it, and for many years I really did not like Paul's performance in the film, because I think Paul, this is so funny because he kind of ignores me in the movie, and I didn't like that. You know, I didn't like to be ignored. You know, I'm throwing my sex at him, you know, and I'm like, you know, trying to seduce him, and he's like, you know, it's like he could care less. And so for a long time I thought, well, that sucked, you know, and that wasn't right, and he should have been more attentive and stuff like that. But now, when I watch the movie, I think Paul is actually perfect in the movie, because what's going on around him is so deranged that, you know, he had to have that kind of sort of absent, you know, being absent in a way, and I think it works really well. So, you know, I thought when we were shooting that we didn't have a lot of chemistry, but now I think that was right for the role. And you know, the only thing about David was, of course, the story's been told a million times, but he used to, the girl that played the woman that cries all the time.
Yeah.
You know, she couldn't cry, and so she asked David if he would slap her around so she could cry.
Wow.
So, yeah, so they were always going off into the next room, and she'd come out crying.
Oh my God.
I don't know, maybe that's what got David even more into weird stuff. I'm not sure.
Oh.
And you got to stab him in the shoulder with a fork too.
Yes, I did. And I'll tell you about that in a second. But he asked me once, when I had to be emotional, he asked me if I needed any help, and I said, no, David, I can act. So I didn't want to be slapped around by David. You know, of course, if I'd known now who David was going to become, I might have, you know, let him slap me around a little bit back then. But anyway, but yes, I did. They put a little pad. He was standing in for the actor. I don't know why, but they put this tiny little pad on his shoulder, and I was supposed to hit that pad with that big cooking fork as I'm screaming and being attacked. And I missed the pad, and he, you know, went right into his shoulder, and not deep, you know, but deep enough that it bled, and he was, in pain a little bit. But he was very nice about it and understood it, and I think I hit it right the next time, or they made the pad bigger. But, back then we didn't have, the technical stuff. So, I mean, it was just like, everybody jump in the pool and swim toward the people and try to drown Paul, and you're like, well, wait a minute, I don't want to be in the middle of a pool with all these crazy townspeople who have no acting experience at all, and they're just telling them to be crazy and, drown us. It's like, hold on. So, it was pretty different. I mean, when we did I Drink Your Blood, that one scene where they cut off Alex Mann's leg, George Patterson, the African-American actor, cuts his leg off, and they had Alex's, lower part of his leg, was bent and was like down under the table, and his part of his thigh was, showing. And David Durston drew a little line and said, now, George, be sure you don't go, above that line, because if you do, you'll actually, cut his leg off.
Oh my God.
And George is like got rabies, and he's like foaming at the mouth and, wielding this axe, and, comes down right on that mark. But, shit. I mean, that was like crazy,
Wow.
So it was pretty crazy. But anyway, it was great working with David.
Did you have to do any kind of press or answer any questions? Because there was, and I didn't know this till I talked to a guy that he's kind of an expert in Canadian cinema, and he was saying that there was kind of an uproar because this was paid for with Canadian tax money, and this guy happened to write an article that said, you should know how bad this film is, you paid for it. Was there ever any backlash towards that you had to deal with?
Well, I never had to deal with any of it because I was, lived in America, and I mean, I don't remember anyone ever even interviewing me for the film or, anything like that. So, I didn't know anything about the movie after it was over and I came back to the States. I mean, I never saw it reviewed. I had no information about it whatsoever. And then it finally came out, and then it was gone, and I didn't know really anything too much about it till like 30 years later when people started, saying, wow, you were in that? I'm like, yeah.
It's refreshing, too, that you embrace all that and take it for what it is, even though you didn't know that it was going to become such an iconic cult classic. I'm glad to hear that you're proud of it.
Oh, yeah. Well, whenever I act or perform, either live for an audience or on a film, I don't care whether it's a $21 million film or a $5,000 film. I'm proud that these people have asked me to make their dream come true, and I'm going to do 100% of my best that I can do to help them to achieve that. And I've always felt that way. If there's two people in the audience or if it's a full house, I'm going to give a performance like it's a full house.
And the person who wrote that article, I bet they didn't write another one afterwards when they'd made their money back and more from the film.
Yeah.
But the interesting point that I read, and I don't know if you'd know that this is true, is that he became so depressed around that time with the backlash that he even thought of giving up film work altogether because there was so much aggravation over that.
Really? No, I didn't know that.
That's only what I've read. Another big director that you worked with in '82, Paul Schrader.
The Blu-ray is coming out on Cat People, and they interviewed me for that. So I don't know how much they're going to keep of what I told them. But, you know, I mean, actually I didn't paint the story for them quite the way that it actually was, because I didn't want them to take me out of the interview. But Paul was not my favorite director to work with. He was really kind of insensitive director. But he did let me write some of the lines that are in the scene that I'm in. So not very many people know that, but there's 2 or 3 lines in that scene that I do that I actually wrote. And he, you know, the thing was that I had to fall down those stairs like over 20 times, and because they couldn't get the shot. And it was very painful, and I got really hurt. And I just kept having to do it over and over and over. And they didn't take the tacks out the first time I went down the steps, and I got all cut my hands got all cut, and I had to have a tetanus shot, and I was bruised and rug burned, and the choreographer never worked with me, and it was kind of brutal. So my memories of that film are they're not ideal memories, but I would do it again because it turned out to be an incredible scene, and it's very memorable, and and it was interesting, definitely interesting working with Paul, and I got to go to New Orleans and do that kind of thing. But the thing is here's an example, is when I was in New Orleans, they lit the whole street. They did full body makeup on me, hair, face, whole body, everything. And then all they show in the scene is my legs walking across the street and stepping on that piece of glass with my shoe, and that's it. So, you wouldn't have had to have done my hair or my face or full body makeup or anything. You wouldn't have had to lit the whole street,
Right.
So for hours and hours and hours, we were there for that one little thing where I walk across the street and up the steps, which is just amazing, the kind of money that is spent. You could have made, 10 movies with what was spent that day. So.
Right.
But but if I had an opportunity to work with Paul again, would I? You bet. because see, now I know how to take care of myself, and I did actually take care of myself finally on that film, because I finally said, no, I'm not going to fall down the steps again. And so they actually offered me more money, and so I said, I'll do it one more time. And so I did it one last time, and they finally got it. They couldn't get the bra to pop open at the end. He has to show everyone's tits in the movie. So they had my bra. They had it on strings. The crew was trying to pull it open. It was just all kinds of stuff. They just couldn't get it to work. And so I had to keep, again, falling down the steps and turning over, to get the bra to pop. So I finally had it, after doing it so many times, But it's a great scene, and if I look like I'm in a lot of pain as I'm coming down those steps, it's because I am.
Oh my God, that story never gets old.
I know.
Oh.
But I didn't tell it like that in the interview. I didn't actually no one was really to blame, so I didn't put blame on anyone. I just kind of said what happened, and
Yep.
Another one I'd like to bring up from 2005, Dead Things.
That was kind of like the first film I did when I came back after not acting for 10 years. I acted in theater, and I had a singing group and did my singing show, but I hadn't done any films in 10 years. And I don't remember how I met D.T. Carney. We met on Facebook somehow, but he asked me to do this little part, and I'd never seen the film actually, so I don't even know how I look or how I did or anything, but I just play this neighbor who comes over and has coffee with Brink, who's the witch, And, I'm just like a normal person in it, who's like wants cream and sugar in her coffee, And so there's nothing crazy or, really terribly memorable about what I did in that. But I think Brink was quite good. And then it was lovely meeting her.
Well, you mentioned about Richard, and I think one of the films I love you in 2000s is Splatter Disco.
That's a fun film. Yeah, well, I can't really tell you exactly what the whole movie means.
Right.
But it was a lot of fun. I mean, I actually Mary Warnoff was supposed to do the part that I did, and Mary was she had to go off on some big trip that she had planned, so she couldn't do it. So she recommended me, and Richard knew me and knew my work. He was a little bit concerned because he had never seen me play, the bitch, the real, tough, broad, kind of thing, which, I've done for years and years in theater, but never on film.
Right.
And so, but, I mean, he said after I did the first sentence, he was totally, knew that I was perfect for the part. And we had a lot of fun. I mean, it's Richard and Ted they're just so much fun to work with. They're just funny, and you'll just laugh a lot, and all the other people in the film were just great. And I had a blast doing that film, and that was really early on too when I first started back. So,
yeah. And William DeCuff played your son?
Yes.
Great guy. He's a great guy. Yeah,
he's very sweet, and he was, he was great fun to work with, and we've definitely kept in touch. And he's, trying to put together a project, and he'd like for me to be in it. So I'm hoping to get to work with him again.
Cool.
I've really tried to stay in touch with all the people I've worked with now in the last, I don't know when I came back, 2005.
Right. Well, the next film is also a Richard film, Beyond the Dunwich Horror.
Right. I don't care a whole lot for my part I look fat in that movie. So, and actually I was fatter in that movie. So I gained some weight, and but I'm supposed to be dead, so I guess if I'm dead and fat, it's okay. But but it was fun to do it. I just don't like the way I look in it. But we had a ball. There was a big blizzard. I mean, you couldn't hardly even walk. I mean, it was so much snow, and we're trying to get to the library, and we're like in this old library. That was one of the great things about working with Richard, is he got all these really great locations. So, I mean, we had this library for 2 days.
Wow.
And, you could wander around it, and it was really spooky because it was so, snowing and everything. But I mean, it's a very interesting film, and and after I saw it, I lost I lost a lot of weight after I saw it. So I could go back to looking good again.
Well, I'm going to spit out a line to you. Stick out your goddamn tongue, sweetie. Yeah, Basement Jack is one of these films that kind of reminds you of the slasher films like Michael Myers. Basement Jack is not the same character, but very similar to the Michael Myers character. I like that film.
That was a great film to work on. Michael Shelton, he's a big FX guy. Worked on Terminator Salvation and the Resurrection of Emily Rose, and, just all kinds of films. This was his first directorial film. And, I just loved playing that part because she's such a monster.
I love it too.
And, it was so much fun to get to harness that.
Right.
And to bring that out. And it was so much fun, the first day, because everybody on the crew and the makeup people and everybody was like scared of me, which I thought was so funny, because I'm really nice. And, and then after they worked with me for a little while, I would do that one line that you just said, and then I would hear them kind of over there whispering, going, "She's so nice. How does she do that?"
I love that.
Oh
my
yeah,
God.
so it was a lot of fun, to do that. And
I use that in my intro for a long while. That
oh
clip.
yeah. Yeah, they had that in the trailer too. I wish more people had seen that film.
I know.
It's really quite a remarkable film.
It is.
And the way he describes visually the killings are really amazing. I mean, sometimes you do get to see the kill, and then sometimes you see the aftermath of the kill.
Yeah.
And, and I mean, that variety, I thought there was a lot of variety, in that. And, so it was great. You should also see Night of the Sea Monkey. It's a 30-minute short that I did. And I play Grandma O'Connor. And she's got dementia. And it's a comedy. It's a horror comedy, and I battle the sea monkey, and I save my grandson, and she turns out to be the heroine. I'm very funny in it, and it was a lot of fun to do.
Have you guys seen The Super?
No, I haven't.
No. Go ahead, Lynn. Give listeners an idea about Super and your performance in The Super.
Well, I don't want to.
Say too much.
I don't want to tell too much because
Right.
I don't want to give it away.
Right.
But I play the Super's wife, and I'm in a wheelchair, and it was a very interesting project to work on. Brian and Evan directed it, and they were wonderful. And Alex Vagonis was one of the producers, and he was great. And it was one of those kind of situations that you sort of go into, and they both Evan and Brian have children, and Dimitri, who plays my husband in the film, who I think is just brilliant as the Super. I think he gives such a good performance.
Amen.
We were rehearsing the first night, and the kids are running through the room, and they're playing, Star Wars with swords and everything, and Dimitri and I sitting there trying to rehearse our lines, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, this is this experience. And so, you're here to just absorb whatever it is and, do whatever you can. And so, but it was just a kind of a different sort of environment and situation to, and a lot of times we would be filming, and you could do kids, they'd get excited back in the back room and start yelling, and cut, we'd have to start over and do this again, and, and all that. But but I think we got some really, good things. And I play a very, she's sort of a New Yorker, and she's, she gets agitated with her husband. She doesn't want him to go out all the time. And then, and like I said, she's in a wheelchair, so that was very challenging for me. And, I really can't say too much else about it without giving away, what happens. But I definitely recommend it. It's a very disturbing film. And I think you kind of cry at the end.
Well, I'm going to mention one more, and then I'm going to let the guys take over. But I watched this last year, The Haunting of Whaley House. I thought that you were brilliant in there as well. The Haunting of Whaley House, I thought, was a unique story. Go ahead. Give listeners an idea of what you're talking about.
Well, I met Jose. I saw Jose Prendes. I just happened to be going through, that page where everybody posts, which sometimes I post on. And if you don't see it, you miss it. And so I just happened to see his name. I didn't know who he was, and he was doing this movie. And so, I emailed him and said, hey, are you casting? And so he got right back to me, and he said, oh, I've got this perfect part for you. It's like a bookend. You start the movie and you end the movie.
Right.
And I thought, oh, that sounds pretty interesting. So, I went out there to shoot, and it was so cold. It was so cold. We were in this house that actually the woman who owned it was murdered in this house, and it was creepy. I was really happy I was there in the daytime.
Yeah,
they did a lot of nighttime shoots, and I would not have wanted to be in that house at night because it was really creepy, and they had all of the stuff that she had was still there.
No kidding.
In the house. Yeah, and so, the opening scene, well, again, I don't want to,
Right.
give it away, but yeah, I got to be, pretty emotional in it, and, I liked it. I've gotten a lot of attention from that film, which I didn't think that I would, but a lot of people have told me how much they liked me in it.
It's because your performance, persona that you put out there, like, oh, it's that surprise performance that you do. It's like, when you perform like that, we don't know if you're hiding something, if you're being real. It's beautiful work. Beautiful. That's why.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So,
Torture Chamber's coming out in January.
I want to see
that Dante Tomaselli directed, and I'm very proud of my work in that film. It's I have a really nice role in that film. It's got a beginning, middle, and end, and it's very well put together. It's visually beautiful. I think it's going to get. I think people are going to really like my performance in that film. And also, I have coming out Model Hunger.
Ooh.
And I don't think Debbie Rochon directed that. And I think that once people see me do that film, I will probably never be cast as a heroine again. Because I'm telling you, this woman, she's a Southern belle, and she's the most vicious person I ever played.
Wow.
If you thought the woman in Basement Jack was vicious, she is 100 times more vicious.
Oh wow!
Than that role. So I'm really excited about that because I star in it with Tiffany Shepis, and it's an extremely powerful part. So I think that's gonna get me some notice. I hope more notice.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will, because I mean it's a shame. I don't want to keep going back on the same movie again. But you mentioned it with Basement Jack. I think if more people would have seen that film and to see you in that performance, I could really see you getting more, not similar, but very close to the same character, because you pulled it off fantastic in that kind of a role.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. I really thought that a lot of people would see that, and I really thought that I would start getting more, films, bigger budget, films. Not that I don't like doing the lower budget films, but, I'd like to move to another level and do, some bigger budget films. And that one was a bigger budget, and I really did think that I would be able to use that as a stepping stone, but I just don't think they advertised it right, and just so many people have not seen it, and it's just a shame. So.
Yeah. You were in a soap opera. I did not know that.
Yes, How to Survive a Marriage.
That's the one. Yeah, and right along with some other high-profile people too, F. Murray Abram, Armin and Asante.
Yeah.
What was that like? Did it probably helped you in growing as an actress? It's probably pretty demanding.
Yeah, it's actually extremely demanding working on soap. You have to come in the morning and you do a dry run, and then you do a blocking rehearsal, and then you do a dry run, and during the process of all this, they're like getting your hair ready and your makeup perfect and your costume and all that, and then you do like a rehearsal, and then you do a dress rehearsal, and then you put it on film, tape it. And, it's kind of like theater in a way, except it's all done in one day. And if you have a role that you're like on 5 days a week, which I had for a while, and then I had also towards the end of it, it's a pretty intense training for an actor to go through, and it was great, working with Armand and F. Murray, and also the guy that played my boyfriend in the movie was Brad Davis.
I was going to ask you about that too. He's achieved cult status for Midnight Express. What was that like working with him?
Oh yeah. Oh, he was crazy. I mean, he really totally was a crazy nut person. We actually got to know each other pretty well, and you know, he was just a very, gosh, I can't even explain it. He was kind of like James Dean, but just really, he was just kind of crazy. And unfortunately, you know, I think that added to his demise in the end. But, I mean, he did things like, here's an example. They told him in rehearsal, they told him not to do anything destructive in the scene because he would do things that no one expected. And and so he comes into the scene, you know, and they're filming it, and he like knocks over the whole like china cabinet, you know, and he got fired for it. I mean, they fired him after that. But, you know, he didn't care, you know. He was just like, you know, he was going to do what he felt. He was like a real method, you know, kind of actor. And, you know, he was just going to do what he wanted to do. And, of course, you know, he went on to do Sybil and Roots. And, you know, I mean, he was a very good actor, you know. Just real shame that he left us so early.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was probably the coolest piece of trivia that I found out about you that I didn't know. And it really made sense. I thought, well, it probably made her a little more comfortable doing the independent films because it's a little bit kind of like guerrilla filmmaking on the spot. It's kind of in the same vein. The subject matter's a little different.
Right. Yeah, guerrilla filmmaking. Well, I always tell them, you know, I would say, look, I'm still really good at 12 hours, but if you go over 12 hours, I can't guarantee that I'm still going to be a really nice person because I get, you know, and I'm working with all these guys, you know, people, and they're all like in their 30s, and so they can go for like 18 hours, you know, and I'm like, hey, you know, I can't do that anymore, you know. I mean, and actually on Night of the Sea Monkey, I worked for 18 hours one day. So that was difficult.
Oh boy!
But we did it. Oh, another film I have coming out is The Grim Becoming.
Yes.
The Deathstone Pictures did.
Yes.
And that's going to be a lot of fun. So,
nice.
You know, that was a great experience because I went to Buffalo. I shot Model Hunger in Buffalo last summer. And so this summer I went there and did, I did that film, and I also did The Legend of Six Fingers, that Gregory Lambert produced, and Sam directed. And I also did an episode of The Outlaw that Ace Genovese directed.
Yeah.
But The Grim Becoming was great because I got there and I walked in and they're making up my husband. I play mother and he plays father in the movie. They're making him up to look like he's 90.
Oh,
and I said, what are you going to make me up like that? And they said, oh no, you're just going to look like you. We're not even doing your makeup. You're doing your own makeup and hair. And I was like, you know, WTF, you know. What do you mean? What's going on? And so they started out, they were giving me clothes and sort of making me kind of look like an Edith Bunker character. And so somebody came up to me and said, are you going to like be his granddaughter? And I thought, no, but you know what I could be? Is I could be like a kind of a Brooklyn younger airhead who's married, you know, to the rich old man. And so I went to the director, you know, and I said, I did one of my lines, you know, for him, you know, and I called his father Honey Bear, so he was like, Honey Bear, you know, we have to go to the hotel and get our room, you know, that kind of character.
Yeah.
And he loved it. So I ended up doing, you know, this kind of blonde, you know, airhead, dumb, you know, character, and it was great fun. So I think that's going to be really good when it comes out. Group of people. I think I'm going to be working with them again next summer too. So
sweet.
Yeah. And George's Intervention is another one that Jake Seaton directed. That's a lot of fun. I play the interventionist, and she's a hoot. I actually won the Best Actress award at the at the Yellow Fever Film Festival in Ireland for that part.
Nice.
And I won Best Supporting Actress for Basement Jack at the Terror Film Festival.
Oh, I can see why.
In Philly.
Hell yeah.
So,
and the Darlene Clementines, I interviewed April and her husband, and they talked about that film, so that looks like a pretty cool film too as well.
yeah, that's an exceptionally brutal film. Exceptionally sexually brutal film. I don't get to do anything though really sexual, except that I did email Jimmy O back, and I said, how come I don't get to do anything that's sexual in the film? And he was like, oh wow, I didn't think that you would. And I said, well, I'm not a nun. Yeah, I could do something.
Yeah.
So he wrote this scene in that's like a flashback scene. So I get to be much younger in that scene, and then then I get to be the older, the mama of the girls, and she's like, you better shut your mouth. I'm gonna hit you with this spice water.
Oh, I love it.
And I mean it right now. You shut up.
Oh, I love it.
That kind of character.
Yeah.
So that should be a lot of fun to do that. And I love working with Debbie Rochon. She's going to be one of my daughters, and April, and so it should be great.
Yeah.
That was a hoot. Have you seen it?
No, not yet. No.
I play the principal of the high school, and I'm very, very funny in it. She's got some funny lines, and this, one of the girl students trying to tell me that her brother is a vampire, her stepbrother's a vampire, and I'm just like,
Sure.
I'm humoring her, doing all these things, but it's quite funny. So I love my part in that.
Good.
That was a lot of fun to do. It was actually written originally for the principal to be a little bit hot for the vampire kid, but they took that out because they thought that was too risque. They didn't want anything like that, so they took that out. But yeah, like I can't remember, but I think I smelled his hair at one point or something, or had like a little bit of a crush.
True. Now, is there anything else that you're allowed to talk about that we have not mentioned?
No, not really. I mean, I'm still working on a project that I'm hoping to do, but I can't really mention it.
Okay.
It would be a remake of something, but it's in the works. I'm hoping it's going to happen, and I'm just doing conventions, and I'm maybe doing a little film called Christ Rising with Camille Keaton.
Nice.
And up on a mountain in a cabin in the snow or something. So that would be fun because I love Camille, and we've gotten to be really good friends. She's actually coming over on Tuesday. We're going out for dinner together.
Cool.
Yeah, she's great. So I'm doing that, and just kind of waiting for these two big films to come out that I star in, Torture Chamber and Mall Hunger.
I know, I want to see that myself.
Yeah, they're very good. Oh, and Dante is working on 2 new films. He's doing the remake of Alice, Sweet Alice.
Yeah.
And also The Doll. And I'm, hoping to play the aunt in Alice, Sweet Alice. I've been hitting him up on that, but he's not going to be, I don't think, completely in charge of casting, so I don't know, but I'm, definitely put in my bid for it, and I would love to work with him again because he's just a charming, wonderful, soft-spoken. It's very funny because he's so soft-spoken, and he'll say, I think you need to get, like, some more blood in her hair. Yeah. And he says it in just such an easy-going way, it's just like, so it's just funny. But yeah, that's about it. I've been doing conventions and just enjoying being a horror personality.
Yeah.
It's been great.
A reborn,
Yeah.
Come back after 10 years, and it took a little time, but then when it started getting like 2009-ish, then you started taking off again, and now you're back to that huge stardom again.
Yeah, and Fangoria, has had me on the cover, and they do articles, on me, and
well, I can see
it's been great. It's been really, really fun to get a second chance to do films and, share some of my personalities with fans that they haven't seen before.
Right.
I got a few of them, let me tell you.
Yeah, I want real quick, I'll ask you about that. So what is your experience like now, as far as going to conventions now? Obviously, is it always the same ones coming up, the Crazies, and what is the most common question?
Well, the most common question always is, what was it like to work with George Romero?
Okay.
And what was it like to work with David Cronenberg?
Okay.
Which I never get tired of those questions.
Right.
I love those questions because I love talking about the two of them. But, unfortunately, most of the fans still know me and love me, which is great, and that's not unfortunate, but from the old films. And, every now and then, a little bit here, a little bit there, somebody will mention the Super or George's Intervention or Basement Jack, so slowly it's, coming up.
Yeah.
But still the majority of the fans, want to talk about the 70s stuff.
Yeah. Well, I can see why, because horror conventions are basically for that reason. There's new work too, but a lot of them will say, "Oh my God, it's Lynn Lowry. Remember her from the Crazies?" So you're always going to have that. It's not going to be, "Oh my God." Now, unless you're a younger generation, like in your 20s, they might say, "Oh my God, it's Lynn Lowry. She was from Dead Girls Don't Cry." I'm just saying, it'll take time for that, but it is.
I'm not in that though,
Well, I just said off the top of my head.
Whatever happens about them.
But
what I am going to do is I have this big banner, this life-size banner, and I have a photograph on it now, but I'm going to put my photograph on it from Model Hunger. And I have this one scene in Model Hunger where I'm in this really sexy black lingerie stuff.
Oh, wow.
And I'm standing by a pole. It's a really cool shot. And so I'm going to put that on a life-size banner. So maybe people will start going, "Oh, what's that from?" I can encourage them more about the new stuff.
Yeah. All right. Guys, anything you have to say to this young princess?
Have you ever been asked to do a convention in the UK?
I'm going to do Misty Moon Society in Greenwich in March, which is a really great venue. I'm going to be there for 4 nights. We're going to show 4 of my movies, and they bring an audience of 50 people in each night. And I am the hostess, and I talk to everybody, do a Q&A, and then they can, buy my pictures and all that stuff if they'd like to. I'm trying to get into the memorabilia in Birmingham, also in March while I'm there. And then I'm going to Germany to do Movie Days, The Dark Zone in March. So that's my first time to do a convention over there. So I'm very excited about that.
Is that near you, John?
No, Birmingham's only a couple of hours drive away, so I'd be more than happy to drive up there.
That'd be great.
Yeah, my final question would be, could you name your favourite horror film?
My favorite horror film? Oh, man. That's a toughie. Well, I have 2, actually. The Omen with Gregory Peck.
Yes.
Which I love. I think perfect film.
Me and Gruesome spoke about that.
And Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
You go, girl!
Oh, wow.
I love that. I think that is truly one of the most chilling films that I've ever seen, and one of the scariest. And there's hardly not a drop of blood in the movie. And everybody thinks it's so bloody. You see no blood.
Yep.
And I've just become really good friends with John Dugan, who I was shocked to meet because I expected this old man, to come crawling up to me.
Yeah.
John did that film when I guess he was in his 20s or something. I'm not sure, but And also Gunnar Hansen, I've met a couple of times now, and he's great. So those two, I would say, I really like a lot. And of course, Halloween is also one of my favorites, the original.
Yeah, you go,
I
girl.
just actually watched all 5 of them over Halloween week. You were all on. And so I had a Halloween marathon. I'd never seen number 5.
Oh, yeah?
So, I got to see 5. But 1 and 2 are my favorites.
Mine, too. Excellent.
Well, I pretty much just have some parting words. I wanted to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you for, you said it best, I feel like you give your effort to any project that you're involved in, no matter how great or small it may seem at the time. And I think because you've been so gracious, I think it's paid off for you that those little films that seem to be definitely south of sanity that you were involved in became, staples for horror from very influential filmmakers that shaped cinema. And just talking to you, I understand why you have stayed around and why you are the professional that you are.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I love to work. I love to act, and I love the fans. And I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for them. So I'm always very thrilled to meet them. I love going to conventions and meeting them. They're wonderful.
All right. Lynn, I love you to death. Thanks for coming on again.
Thank you so much.
You're charming as always, and it's great to talk to you. So.
I can say you guys have a great holiday.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Oh,
it's nice talking to you. Really was. And I hope you go to Birmingham this year, and I'll travel up there.
I would love that. That would be wonderful. I hope so, too.
Cool.
All right, Lynn. Take care of yourself, sweetheart. Talk soon.
You too.
We'll see you, babe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.